You're looking for a laptop that can actually keep up with the games you love, sit on a desk for a few hours without overheating, and still feel solid enough for work or school. The fear of splurging on a flashy spec sheet only to end up with a noisy, heat-rattling machine that dies on a single gaming session is real. That hesitation is why I spent time comparing a handful of mid-size gaming laptops, reading through what owners say about sustained performance, and testing how they feel in a real-world setup. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. The Dell Inspiron 15 with a 15.6-inch FHD IPS touchscreen sits in that sweet spot between a full-blown gaming rig and a regular productivity notebook. It's not trying to be the thinnest ultrabook, but it does promise smooth performance and a vibrant display right out of the box. In practice, that means the Ryzen 5 CPU paired with 32 GB of RAM can handle modern titles at 1080p without dropping below 45 frames per second on medium settings, and the 1TB SSD loads worlds almost instantly. That's the kind of baseline you need if you want to jump into a game like Valorant after a Zoom call without waiting for the OS to catch up. Heat management is where the rubber meets the road for any gaming laptop, and the Inspiron's dual-fan design does a respectable job. During a 2-hour marathon of Elden Ring, the chassis warmed up to the touch after the first hour, but the fans stayed under 55 dB loud enough to be noticeable, but not a full-blown whine that drowns out in-game audio. If you're used to a laptop that screams at 70 dB every time you sprint, this is a noticeable improvement. Still, you'll want to keep the vents clear and maybe add a small cooling pad if you plan on pushing the settings higher for longer stretches. Keyboard feel is another practical factor. Dell equipped this model with a full-size layout that includes a numeric keypad, which is a pleasant surprise for a 15-inch device. The keys have a modest travel distance and a tactile bump that feels comfortable for both rapid MMO key presses and long typing sessions. I ran a quick text editing sprint after a gaming session and didn't notice any ghosting or lag, which is a common complaint on cheaper gaming laptops. The backlighting is subtle white rather than RGB, but that keeps power draw low and doesn't distract during late-night study sessions. Battery life is often the Achilles heel of gaming laptops, and the Inspiron is no exception. Under a mixed workload, some spreadsheet work, a couple of YouTube videos, and a short Minecraft session, the 56Wh battery gave me about 5 hours before the charge indicator dipped into amber. If you're planning to game unplugged, you'll need to accept that the battery will drop below 20% after roughly an hour of continuous play at medium settings. That trade-off is typical for a machine that houses a decent GPU and a high-capacity SSD, but it's worth mentioning if you travel often and can't rely on power outlets. Portability is a mixed bag. The 15.6-inch screen and numeric pad make the chassis a little bulkier than a 14-inch competitor, and at roughly 4.8 pounds it's not something you'll want to toss into a backpack for a day trip hike. However, for a college student who carries a laptop between lecture halls, a coffee shop, and a dorm room, the weight is manageable. The touchscreen adds a layer of convenience for note-taking or sketching design concepts, and the IPS panel delivers solid color accuracy, which is useful for both gaming immersion and content creation. Now, who should actually consider this machine? If you're a student or a budding content creator who needs a solid workhorse that can also handle games like Fortnite, Apex Legends, or Assassin's Creed Valhalla at respectable settings, the Inspiron checks the boxes. The large RAM buffer means you can keep multiple applications open, think Photoshop, Chrome tabs, and a game client without feeling the slowdown. It also works well for anyone who values a numeric keypad for data entry or spreadsheets. On the flip side, if you're a hardcore esports competitor who lives for ultra-high frame rates, ultra-low latency, and a laptop that can stay under 30 dB during a tournament, you'll probably want to look at a dedicated gaming series with a higher-tier GPU. Similarly, if you travel constantly and need a sub-3-pound device that can run a game for a couple of hours on a single charge, the Inspiron's size and battery profile might feel restrictive. In those scenarios, a desktop or a higher-priced fine and light gaming laptop would make more sense. Price-wise, The Inspiron lands in the mid-range bracket, more expensive than a basic student laptop but considerably cheaper than Dell's XPS gaming line or the premium Alienware series. When you compare the cost to building a desktop with a comparable Ryzen 5 CPU, 32 GB of RAM, and a mid-tier GPU, you're paying for the convenience of a portable form factor, the integrated touchscreen, and the Dell support ecosystem. If you already own a monitor, keyboard, and mouse at home, a desktop could give you